Anybody else getting kinda sick of the never-ending stream of overly produced superhero movies? MCU may be the biggest movie franchise of all time, but is it time for them to take a bow? There's been a bunch of opportunities for them to do just that, starting with Tony Stark and Rhodey's success against Whiplash. Even though the MCU was only 3 movies into their franchise when Iron Man 2 was released, it was a time when many weren't even aware that this was a whole cinematic universe. The ending of that film saw Tony and Rhodey fighting off Whiplash at the Stark Expo, and then being honored for their big win. This was a pretty big win for the duo, and could have been a great ending for the franchise just then. Fans could have been left with the idea that Tony and Rhodey weren't going to be protectors of the world as Iron Man and War Machine. At this point, Tony had also gotten into a relationship with Pepper, while also reconciling with the memory of his late father. But I understand why they may not have wanted to close things off just then, especially considering how successful the Iron Man movies were. So I don't blame them for continuing to add to the universe. And I, for one, am ever grateful to Marvel for giving us the Avengers. Maybe after foiling Loki's invasion would have served as a better closing point. Taking down Loki was the first plan that the Avengers came up with as a group. It was also their first successful one. It was the only Avengers movie that ended on a triumphant note, with the heroes becoming Earth's mightiest heroes. This one ended with Nick Fury promising that they would return whenever the world needed them again. The movie was the culmination of Phase 1 of the MCU, where the individual movies of Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, and the Hulk built up to. By the end of it, every one of the heroes had fulfilled some kind of goal and was seen as truly happy with everything they'd achieved. There wouldn't have been any loose ends if the MCU had ended right there, but did they? Of course not. They went on to bring Iron Man back, even after giving his character satisfying closure. That's one of the things fans think aged poorly about the Iron Man films. The titular hero went back to donning his suit in Avengers Age of Ultron, even though he promised he was done in Iron Man 3. It actually seemed like the finale for his time in the MCU because we witnessed Tony destroying all his suits and removing the arc reactor from his chest. At the time, most fans saw Tony as the representation of the MCU, so an end to his character arc would have meant a conclusion to the series as a whole. Since the other hero stories hadn't really been established by then, Tony's retirement would have seen the MCU coming to a close as well. But again, Marvel wasn't ready to give up just yet. They made even more movies, stretching the universe to include story arcs of more heroes. Thor, for instance, the god of thunder, fought a multi-planet battle against Malekith that ended with him defeating the Dark Elves for good. He rejected Odin's offer for him to be crowned as king, since he wanted to retire so he could be with his Jane. Loki, who was disguised as Odin, agreed to this request, and we saw Thor leave Asgard. The Loki plot twist wasn't a super big deal because most fans believed he was a breakout character and didn't really mind him as the new king. As for Thor, Marvel made viewers believe that he'd be getting his happy ever after with the woman he loved. The ending followed Tony's retirement as Iron Man and would have fit Thor's own pretty well. But again, Marvel passed on this perfect opportunity as well. They continued to build on even more characters' story arcs. Bucky Barnes' reappearance was a major one. The conflict against Hydra saw a reappearance of Bucky Barnes in the MCU, which ended with S.H.I.E.L.D. coming to an end. That happened after Captain America learned that the Society had been infiltrated by villains. Steve and Sam both went out in search for Bucky after he regained his consciousness and fled. This could have served as an open ending for the MCU, leaving fans to wonder what happened to Bucky, especially since he was later seen at a memorial dedicated to him, implying that he remembered who he was. S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of the glue that held all the heroes together at the time, so its ending could have served as the MCU's conclusion too, but Marvel clearly wasn't satisfied with that conclusion either. That's when we got Ultron, the ultimate villain. Many look at him as the best MCU villain because of how close he came to causing a mass extinction. Moreover, all the fallout from dealing with him led to a whole new phase for the Avengers, where Thor left for Asgard again, Hawkeye retired, Hulk decided not to come back, and Tony went into semi-retirement. There were definitely a bunch of sequel hooks in there, like the tease for the Infinity Stones. Things weren't set in stone. Not the best ending point, I agree, but not the worst either. They could have just implied that Captain America and Black Widow would now be responsible for looking after the new Avengers recruits to keep the world safe. Or if that's not good enough for you, the studio could have taken an entirely different direction. For instance, Thanos successfully wiped out half the planet. It was the bleakest ending so far in the MCU, but then again, maybe things don't always have to end on the best of notes. Thanos' successful execution of the snap to complete his mission could have been a conclusion of sorts. At this point, the overarching plotline of collecting the Infinity Stones had also come to an end, when Thanos brought them all together to complete the Infinity Gauntlet. The last shot of Thanos smiling at accomplishing a goal could very well be seen as the finale of it all, if fans wished to look at it that way, but I don't think anybody expected them to leave things off with an ending like that. Most people fully believed everyone who had been wiped out would come back, and come back they did. Not all of them made it out alive though, and this is where fans might have accepted an end to the MCU, if Marvel really wanted that to happen. Infinity War was brought to a close when Tony Stark eliminated Thanos and his forces, with everyone that had been turned to ash also brought back to life. Just as we expected, the Avengers had finally accomplished their purpose of saving the universe and disbanded, leaving no reason for the team to go on. Tony Stark, the one who it all started with, was given a hero's farewell, while the rest of the original Avengers all got resolutions of their own. Had the MCU intended to be a story with a set beginning and an end, this would have been the definitive conclusion, and we'd all have been perfectly happy with it too. But by this point, new projects had already been announced, so nobody really expected them to stop there. What most of us can agree on though is that even with the steady stream of releases, the new saga's recent projects haven't been able to build the same momentum as the earlier ones. But maybe some fans are happy they have more of these blockbusters to look forward to this frequently. What do you think? See you in the next one.